During WIT in the coming days, students on Team 7-3 will be participating in the Patriot Pen competition. Students who are not consistently in WIT are still allowed to participate, but they'll have to work on their own time. In this video, we'll introduce you to the basics of the competition and provide you with some of the guidance that the students in class will receive so that you are able to make a noble effort yourself. Remember that the Patriot Pen competition is a different type of writing. You'll be writing less as a student and more as a young American citizen. And you'll be writing for a real audience, the judges at the local Veterans of Foreign War post in East Berlin. You'll eventually perhaps even be writing for their regional and national judges. Most of the people who will be reviewing the essays are members of the VFW. They're either people who served in the military or family members of those who served. And so they come to this with a very specific perspective that we should be trying to address. This is also a little bit different because it's more of a flexible theme essay. Like most of our academic writing, it will include an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion, but the style will be a little bit different. Another major difference is that there's going to be a strict word count. We'll show you an example of the winner from last year. Their theme was about their pledge to veterans, and this will help you make sense of what is expected in a writing such as this one. We'll share that in a separate link. So what exactly is the Patriot Pen competition? It's an annual program run by the VFW across America. Their objective is to give students an opportunity to think deeply about and communicate an idea related to a patriotic theme. They often get between 70 and 150,000 students who participate across the country. It works like most competitions. There's a local element, and the winners from that local competition are then passed on to regional, statewide, and perhaps even the national branches. At each level, they select winners and provide rewards. Typically, our local VFW will choose about 10 winners here from the middle school. As a result, there's a good chance that you or many of the kids you know will receive cash prizes and recognition from this organization. I've already highlighted what makes the Patriot Pen writing different. And it's these differences that are why our team believe it's worth investing time into. We think it's important for students to have a chance to write for a wide variety of audiences and purposes and in several different formats. When you think of most of our writings here at school, they follow the expectations in this red box. You're typically writing for your teacher using very academic and formal language. We almost always are writing based on some type of text or artifact. This is why we call the PSSA prompts TDAs, because they're text-dependent analysis. And while that's a really valuable skill, it's not the only reason that people in the world today have for writing. And so this Patriot Pen is a good chance to practice the skills of writing more from our own thoughts and mind and feelings than summarizing a specific text and analyzing it. It's also typically in schools where we focus on specific skills based on the lesson that we're learning. And as we mentioned, generally we're not too worried about specific length. We offer suggestions, but students have a lot of flexibility. The Patriot Pen is different in almost all of these ways. It does have that very authentic audience. You're not writing for a teacher, but you're writing for other adults, especially the judges who are members of the VFW. Most of whom are veterans. You're mixing a lot more informal and formal style. You'll see that some of the example winners have used language that talks a lot about themselves because in many ways the VFW is trying to make patriotism personal, and so they want to know how these topics relate to your own life. And that's why building from your own ideas is so important. It's not about what a reading says or what your teacher has recently taught you, but you're going to think about these really big, really wide open themes and come up with some of your own responses. And in the process, the hope is that you're pulling together many different skills. You're thinking about everything you've learned, not just this year, but in past years. Because there's not a really specific rubric that's looking for something in particular. Instead, they're judging you on big categories. And where many students struggle the most is the idea of this very strict word count. Your essay will need to be between 300 and 400 words. Depending on how it's formatted, that's just a little bit more than a page. That's tough for some students. Either we tend to write a good bit under that because we're rushing too quickly, or we're used to using a lot of words and sometimes repeating ourselves a good bit. In this competition, you have to be clear, direct, precise, and to the point. Otherwise, you're going to run out of space. It's important to remember who our audience is. On screen, you can see the mission and vision statement of the group. Pause the video a moment and think about what you notice as their major goals. Hopefully, you're recognizing some of these bullet points. This also comes from their website, laying out what they consider their core values. And in particular, these bottom images are really important. They are focused on patriotism. Patriotism is very important to their members, and they believe that it is what makes America great. And so they are trying to get people to think about the American ideals that you'll learn in government classes and U.S. history courses, and they want that to be a part of your everyday lives. They also want to recognize and honor military service. As people who served in our country for very real reasons, they want others to understand just how valuable that is, particularly given how much of a sacrifice it was for many of their members and their families. As a result, they also advocate for the care and respect that people should give to veterans, and that even includes services. Further, they want to continue to serve. They joined the military because they believe that giving to their country is important. That belief didn't end when they finished their active service. Instead, now they want to be parts of their communities in other ways aside from soldiers. And so a lot of VFW members are also parts of local organizations to help the community. They want students to be recognizing those values as well. It's really important to keep that who in mind while you are writing. Your ideas should draw inspiration from their core values, or at the very least, you should be trying to connect them to their core values. If these are the ideas that our audience cares about, then we want to try and show how they play out in our own lives too. How are you judged? There's 3 big categories that they weight almost equally. The first 2 are really similar. This first one is basically how relevant and powerful do they think your big ideas are. If we're asking about how does America inspire us, they want to know what 2, 3, or 4 ideas are you picking at the big level, and do they feel like those are good answers? The second category is how well do you explain and detail those ideas. So you not only need to have good big ideas, but you need to back them up as well. And finally, they're looking at the strength of your writing, what they call the clarity of ideas. Now, they might be a little bit less worried about if you're using sentence fragments or run-ons than your English teachers might be. And that's part of why we like this different kind of writing. For them, it's more about how well your ideas are organized, how smoothly you flow from one idea to another, if your sentence structure and style captures their attention and speaks to their heart. And so it's more about how you're writing than about are you following the really nitty-gritty rules. Although you want to make sure you're spelling things correctly for the most part too. Our first step in class will be to just give people time to brainstorm. Since this isn't coming from a specific text and your teachers can't give you exact answers, taking the time to actually stop and think before we write is really important. In fact, the whole first day, that's what we're going to do. Students will have time to think, and then they'll jot a fast list of big ideas on their note cards. Very informal, very quick, just trying to get a whole different bunch of possibilities. Even if you don't love some of them, putting them down might help you come up with other ideas. Once you've had a chance to do that, people will share some of those ideas with partners in order to start putting their thinking into words out loud and perhaps get inspired by some of our partners with other possible ideas. And then we'll begin to go through our list and hone it down to what some of our top choices might be. The goal is to really pull together 3, maybe 2, maybe 4, but somewhere in that neighborhood of 2, 3, or 4 ideas that you plan to write about. And then on the second day, we'll actually start getting into some of the preparation for that. For now, though, you've got what you need to start crafting some ideas and thinking about where you're headed.